And then we're going to roll right into this evening's monthly meeting with the first item on the agenda being the approval of remote participation by a board member. Board members, may I please have a motion?
I move that the school board approve Mrs. Ogburn's participation from a remote location.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Atkins. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Let's have a roll call vote. Reverend Cooper.
Aye.
Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
Mrs. Atkins.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Mrs. Ogburn's request has been approved. May I please note, and I guess circle back, if you're just joining us, that our afternoon work session ran long, so we're just starting our monthly meeting this evening. We apologize for the delay, but I wanted to note that this meeting is being live streamed on the HCPS website. And then per our rules, when we have a remote board member, we need to have a roll call vote. So when I call your name, please verbally indicate your presence. Reverend Cooper.
Present.
Mrs. Shea.
Present.
Mrs. Ogburn.
I'm here.
And Mrs. Atkins.
Present.
And I'm here too. Please let the record reflect that a quorum of the board is physically present and Mrs. Ogburn is participating electronically. I asked Mrs. Ogburn to verbally note if she needs to leave the meeting and subsequently verbally note when she returns.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that we recess for 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Shea, for that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Reverend Cooper or Ms. Atkins, who would like to second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Now I have a second. Let's have a roll call vote to reconvene, to take a brief recess for 10 minutes. Roll call vote. Reverend Cooper.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Atkins.
Aye.
Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
Mrs. Ogburn.
Aye.
And I vote aye. The ayes have it. We're going to take a brief recess and reconvene in 10 minutes, which is approximately 7:25. Thank you. Good evening and welcome back to the June 22nd, 2023 monthly meeting of the Henrico County School Board. The first item on our, well, actually the second item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda. Board members, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Chair Kinsella, I move to amend today's agenda to add an action item regarding an amendment to the superintendent's contract.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. I hear that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Reverend Cooper. Then that will require a roll call vote. Reverend Cooper.
Aye.
Ms. Atkins.
Aye.
Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
Mrs. Ogburn.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So we've just amended the agenda to review the superintendent, to amend the superintendent's contract. Given that we're talking about it right now, let's just handle this right now. Would board members entertain the idea of waiving the 30-day notice as provided in Virginia Code 22.1-60?
I move.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we waive the 30-day notice.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ogburn. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. And now for a roll call vote. Mrs. Shea?
Aye.
Mrs. Atkins?
Aye.
Reverend Cooper?
Aye.
Mrs. Ogburn?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The 30 days has been waived to amend the superintendent's contract. And then next on the agenda, is there a motion to approve the amendment to the superintendent's contract as drafted by council?
I move to approve the amendment to the superintendent's contract as drafted by council.
Thank you, Mrs. Shea. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Reverend Cooper. Now for a roll call vote. Reverend Cooper.
Aye.
Mrs. Atkins.
Aye.
Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
Mrs. Ogburn.
Aye.
And I vote aye. We've just approved the amendment to the superintendent's contract. And now for the next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence conducted by Dr. Cashwell.
Not as exciting as the students who usually join us to lead us in the pledge, but if everyone would please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you would please remain standing for a moment of silence, and certainly as we reflect on all the celebrations of this school year and the positive outcomes, I also want to call attention to using this moment of silence as an opportunity to honor those who have been lost in recent tragic events, our own students in our school system throughout our greater Richmond area who've been lost to gun violence or other tragedy. So our hearts and our thoughts are certainly with our education colleagues and all of us as our communities grapple with these tragedies at the close of the school year. Moment of silence. And that concludes our moment of silence. You may be seated.
Madam Chair, may I have a moment of privilege?
Absolutely, Mrs. Shea.
Thank you so much. I just want to share our heartfelt appreciation to Dr. Cashwell for her incredible service and leadership of this division. I know we spent time during our last monthly meeting celebrating her accomplishments, but just wanted to reiterate how honored we are to serve beside you, and what a joy it is to see how student-focused you are every day. When you're in a room and you see students, that's where you go, because that's who you are, and we're just incredibly honored to serve alongside you. And on that note, Chair Kinsella, would you mind sharing what the amendment is that we approved for the superintendent's contract? Like what we just voted on? Or that we have
extended the superintendent's contract for an additional year, which actually extends her term of service with Henrico County Schools until June 2027, which is the maximum term that we can allow, that the Code of Virginia allows for. And on behalf of the board, we look forward to continuing to serve with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all, and I say this many times, I mean it so sincerely. It is just truly an honor to be able to serve the students of Henrico and our community, and appreciate the board's continued confidence in my leadership as we work to continue positive outcomes for students. Thank you. All right, I think I'm next on the agenda with the Henrico Highlight. And so for tonight's Henrico Highlight, I am pleased to honor the approximately 3,840 members of the class of 2023 who received their diplomas earlier this month. The ceremony was a particularly happy one for the Henrico Virtual Academy, which celebrated its first ever graduating class. Student speakers and principals from all of our schools noted that the resilience of this graduating class and the innovation that supported both traditional and non-traditional learning opportunities for students were quite amazing. We heard appreciation for teachers, kindness towards classmates, and gratitude for a loving school community. Take a look.
It is my privilege and pleasure to welcome you to John Randolph Tucker High School's 59th commencement exercises.
The 60th commencement exercises of Varina High School.
To the 11th commencement exercises here at Glen Allen.
The Henrico Virtual Academy's inaugural commencement exercise.
Please rise for the procession of the class of 2023.
Today, we not only celebrate your many accomplishments over the past 4 years as high school students, but we also acknowledge the achievements you have made in the 13 years leading up to this moment.
There is a next chapter, and for a lot of us, we are ready. And some of us, maybe we don't know what is next. But seniors, we made it here, to this moment, this time, to graduation.
HVA is a groundbreaking and innovative approach to what public school can look like. And we have all shared this unique high school experience that has brought us closer together as a graduating class.
We must continue advocating for ourselves and others. Speaking up for yourself doesn't always feel good. It can be scary, but it is necessary. Advocating for yourself can improve your life and your options.
When you look back on your life many years from now, what do you want to think about? Do you want to say, I can't believe I accomplished all those things? Or do you want to say, I wish I kept trying to fulfill my dreams?
We all have something to pin our pride to in this world. These achievements are staples of our legacy. It's not just about the diploma that makes today a great moment. It's the knowledge that we've earned for ourselves.
Whether we all stay close or go quite far, I hope we all find comfort in this place we have called home for the last 4 years, or for some of us, only 1, 2, or 3 years.
As we face the changes and challenges in our lives, let's persevere with courage and humility.
We made it. The world is now in your hands. I challenge you to chase your dreams, and if you do so, you might just change the world along the way.
Will the candidates for graduation please stand?
By the virtue of the authority vested in me
by the Commonwealth of Virginia,
the Henrico County School Board,
and on the recommendation of the faculty and administration,
I declare these candidates of Hermitage High School,
Highland Springs High School,
graduates, with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities
appertaining thereto.
Will the graduates please turn their tassels?
And that concludes the Henrico Highlight and items from the superintendent.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cashwell. What a wonderful highlight for this evening. The next item on our agenda this evening is the reading of the Henrico Schools mission statement. Mrs. Shea, would you please read this mission statement?
Henrico County Public Schools, an innovative leader in educational excellence, will actively engage our students in diverse educational, social, and civic learning experiences that inspire and empower them to become contributing citizens.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Shea. The next item on our agenda is the public forum. A total of 3 citizens have signed up in advance to address board members. Citizens have signed up in advance and will be given 2 minutes to address the school board, and speakers will be called to speak in the order in which they signed up. You may not relinquish your spot to anyone else. We ask that each speaker comes to the microphone and clearly states their name and school affiliation, if applicable, and the subject of your remarks before speaking. After stating your name, please place the number you were given in the cart near the podium. Speakers must present their remarks to the school board, not to the audience, and may provide copies of their comments to the school board clerk. The use of obscenity or defamation is strictly prohibited and will be ruled out of order. To assist you this evening in keeping track of your time, there is a timekeeping system displaying on the elapsed screen. Elapsed time on the screen. Speakers will also receive a notice from the chair when your time has expired.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Seeing that we are slated to approve P2-05-004 later on in the agenda, which will change our public speaker time from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, I'd like to make a motion that we allow our speakers this evening 3 minutes for public comment.
Okay, thank you for that motion, Mrs. Shade. May I have a second, board members, hearing that motion?
Second.
Thank you so much, Reverend Cooper. So now we're going to do a roll call vote to change the public speaking time this evening from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. That will be in compliance later on when the board changes the speaking time to 3 minutes in an amended policy up for vote this evening. Let's do a roll call vote. Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
Mrs. Atkins.
Aye.
Mrs. Ogburn.
Aye.
And Reverend Cooper?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The time for this evening's public comment has been changed from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. And then if I may finish reading what I'm required to read to the public. The school board is here this evening to hear from you. We will not be responding to your concerns or questions during this portion of the public forum. However, please know a Henrico staff member will follow up with each speaker. Stakeholders also have the opportunity to provide written comments through an online form in advance of the meeting. Those comments are shared with the school board members prior to the meeting and are also posted in board docs online. Equal consideration and attention will be given to both written and in-person comments. Please know we appreciate your attendance here this evening and for taking the time to provide input. The first speaker this evening is speaker number 1. Speaker number 1. Okay, no speaker number 1. How about speaker number 2, please?
Good evening. My name is Dick Hall Sizemore. I'm a longtime resident of Henrico County. Obviously, I don't have any children in Henrico schools now, but my daughter did go through the Henrico school system many years ago. I want to talk to you tonight about the fundamental, what I see as a fundamental function of a school, and that is to teach the kids to read. And I think Henrico school system is failing a large, significant portion of its student body in this respect. I looked at the SOL test scores 2022 for the 3rd grade reading. And as you probably know, the Department of Education the State Department of Education has a wonderful database, and you can slice and dice that data any way you want to. And what I did was I was wanting to look at just the regular, what I call the regular ordinary students. So I used a filter, got rid of deleted the special education people, the migrants, the homeless, the militarily connected, the foster care children, the disabled children, and English learners. That doesn't mean I don't think they're important. They are important. But those are separate issues. The system also allows you to divide your population into advantaged and disadvantaged. Now, disadvantaged, of course, means children who are defined economically. Children who are eligible for free or reduced lunches, meals, or eligible for TANF or eligible for Medicaid. In other words, poor kids. Disadvantaged is just a euphemism for poor kids. In 2022, in 3rd grade, the disadvantaged children, there was a 58% pass rate. For the advantaged children, there was a 87% pass rate. Remember, the cut levels were lowered several years ago. So these scores would have been lower probably. That means of the disadvantaged children, almost 40%, over 40%, were not able to read at the third grade. And educators tell me that that is a critical part, third grade. If you're not able to read at third grade level, your rest of your school career will be very difficult. My 3 minutes are up already.
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay. Well, it gets worse with the black, you divide it into blacks. So I will prepare some written remarks and submit them to the board.
Thank you. And the next speaker this evening is speaker number 3.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Wilson. My grandson attends Henrico High School. I'm calling because on February the 9th, Jaquez was in an altercation at the school where he was suspended. On March the 13th, disciplinary action in central office, and with his IEP team, had a manifestation of his disability, that it was, the incident on the 9th was caused by his manifestation of his disability. So he was able to return back to school on February the 14th. On March the 9th, William Noel called me at home and told me that Jaquez was no longer to be at the school on company property due pending a criminal investigation. So they placed him on homebound services. I want you all to know that Jaquez have an active IEP. He has ADHD. He operates in an ODD, defined disorder also. So from March the 9th to May the 15th, this child has no education placed in form for him for 2.5 months. I know he's owed compensatory services. He hasn't received those as well. So at this point, I am going further with my governor and my civil rights, NAACP and SCLC, on behalf of my grandson, because this school system has failed him tremendously. Now, we didn't have an IEP meeting prior to school's out, so he's continually sitting at home. So if you are gonna place children on homebound services for whatever the cause or reason may be, I expect that you have something in place for these children, because now he's been reprimanded twice for the same incident. And I know you can't answer my questions today, but I will be at every board meeting until this situation is rectified. Prior to this, I will also be looking for a private setting for him for the 23-24 school year at the county's cost.
I would just like to thank individuals for coming out this evening to share comments with the board, and also thank the individuals who submitted comments to the board online. The next item on our agenda this evening is the approval of consent items. Board members, are there any items that you would like to have broken out, or can we vote them as a block? Ms. Ogburn, are there any items you'd like to take out and discuss?
No.
Thank you so much. All right, if there are no requests to discuss any items individually, then let's vote on these items as a block. Board members, may I have a motion?
I move that the school board accept, adopt, approve, and/or award items 7.01 through 7.39 on the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you so much for the motion. Ms. Atkins, may I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you so much, Reverend Cooper. Now for a roll call vote. Mrs. Atkins.
Aye.
Reverend Cooper.
Aye.
Mrs. Ogburn.
Aye.
Mrs. Shea.
Aye.
And I vote aye. The ayes have it. Items 7.01 through 7.39 on the consent agenda have been approved. The next item is unfinished business, board members. Does anyone have any unfinished business? Hearing none, the next item on our agenda is new business. Board members, are there any new business items to present? Hearing none, the last item on our agenda this evening is the announcement of meeting dates. Please know the school board's next meeting will be a work session scheduled on Thursday, August the 10th, 2023 at 1 p.m. Note the meeting time may be adjusted as needed. This meeting is adjourned.